doing my dancing. Hi, everybody. We are live. I love that little trance music. It's kind of we're like in a time warp or something. Hi, everybody. I'm Graham Walker, co-founder of Offcall. Super excited to be here with my way smarter counterpart here, Dr. Michael Hobbs. Michael, introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. Michael Hobbs, pediatrician and lover of all AI.
Lover of all AI, even the evil, the dark AI. Michael even loves that.
You know,
we are super excited to be here. Can you guys see my slides? I can never tell with this thing. But if not, there we go. There are my slides. Thanks, Chad. This is session 4, you guys. We have come a long way, I will say. Thank you, evidently, for sponsoring this series. This is going to be intermediate and some advanced vibe coding topics. What we've done in the past, Michael, is if people want to put in the chat where they're calling from, where they're dialing in, which is also not correct, where they're viewing from. We love to shout out people in all the various countries and cities and states across this little earthen planet that we're floating around on for this topic. Let me dive right in here to this. This is session 4. We have gone a long way from what is AI, how to do AI safely, how to install Claude Code or OpenAI's Codex, to now some intermediate and advanced topics. I would say you're maybe in a fellowship level. You're maybe an early attending. Sometimes some residencies like to call it a pretending, they're pretending to be an attending, where you're hopefully feeling a little bit more comfortable with vibe coding. If you aren't, you can always watch our older webinars as well to get started. And then we've got some, we have gifts for you guys, not gifts like the images, gifts with a T. We've got some presents for you guys if you stay to the end. Michael has coded some stuff for the Offcall community. Heidi, Stanford, Arise have some gifts for you as well. So we're really excited. Here's what we're going to cover. We're going to just tell you guys about GitHub and what is Git, so that you're not intimidated by it. It's not intimidating, but it'll help you with your vibe coding, I promise you. We're going to talk about how to use other modes of vibe coding, like plan mode, goal mode, and how to direct the AI if you're getting stuck or frustrated. As we talked about, I think in every single webinar, Michael, we're going to cover a little bit even more this time about permissions and safety, because if you don't want Claude to accidentally type a command like delete my entire hard drive, which it can if you don't have the right safety modes. Usually it doesn't, but it technically can. I'm super excited for our VIP guest, Dr. Tom Kelly. Tom is a vascular surgeon, CEO of Heidi Health. And yes, he even vibe codes for Heidi. He has told me this. So I'm excited to talk with him about that. See a presentation from him about Heidi. We have neurologist Dr. Liam McCoy on from the Stanford and Arise group. They are, I think, doing the best generative AI benchmarking research, implementation research in the world today. I will say that. And then we've got a showcase. We're going to show you guys some of our Offcall community that are building tools from clinicians that have built things. We've got a little video that people have submitted with what they're building. Michael, did that cover it well?
Yeah. Strong agree with the Arise group too. Good stuff from
them. Michael, when I say Git, and you say GitHub, what is that like? What does that mean? What does Git or GitHub mean to you?
Oh, well, at the simplest level, it means saving my butt if I need to go back and recover my work, because the version control is the name of the game for Git, either locally or GitHub if you're doing it in the cloud.
Yeah, tell people what you mean by Git and version control and how it works, why it saves your butt, and then we'll go in the pipeline step. We'll go into the pipeline steps too.
Totally. So Git is a really great tool. One, because it's free. Two, it's really useful because as you're making your software, you're building your website, you're writing your code, what you want to make sure you do is like you save it every once in a while. Just like Word will auto save your document for you. And then if you have a problem, you can go back to it. Git is a software version of that. And so if you have what are called commits, it's just committing your work to memory, basically, is a good way to think about it. And then if you keep going forward, if you get stuck, you can go back 1, you can go back 2, you can go back 3. And we'll show you what that looks like at some point later. But you can store that locally. You can store that on the cloud through GitHub. The word means nothing. It's just a slang word from the UK, I believe, because Linus named it after himself.
He's a Git. Yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah. So don't stress about what the words mean. And then we'll go through some of the basic lingo because the PR is probably the one that we need to make sure we explain the most because it's a little counterintuitive when you say pull request when you're really pushing something.
Yeah. We're gonna get real nerdy on you guys. Sorry. I'll just tell you my version of Git and GitHub as well, Michael. I think of them as an alternative to the older ways we used to back things up. If you were in college around my years, you would like write a paper and then you would save it to a floppy disk, or maybe you would email it to yourself so you had a backup. Because if your copy got corrupted or you didn't save it or you weren't, it wasn't auto saving back in the day. And so you needed to have a backup somewhere in case it got corrupted or lost because your like essay final paper that you wrote 20 freaking pages on the Civil War, if it got deleted, you were screwed, you were hosed.
Yeah.
So think of it as a free way to back things up, especially when you use GitHub and back it up to the cloud. The other thing that it does is if you start working with teams, and other people, you can work on files together. And instead of the other old way we used to share documents, which is like you would email an attachment of the Word document, and then you would like rename it as like Graham Walker Final. And then your friend or your lab partner would reply back and say it like Final, or put their name or their initials in it. Like you got these longer and longer file names. This allows you to save it and also incrementally, like Michael said, show you what changed. So in the same way that Microsoft Word will, if you turn on track changes, you can see that, Michael Hobbs changed the subtitle here and he added a colon and he added a question mark, or changed the font name or the italics. GitHub will also show you, it's called the diff, which is showing you, hey, the document now says mental models and 5 minutes ago, Michael Hobbs changed it from mental modes or a typo or whatever else like that.
One other thing, it's a great way to share your work with others too.
Oh yeah. And we'll see a demo of my very own GitHub where you can share stuff privately. So I've got lots of secret projects that nobody knows about. And then I've got public ones that I'm like, hey, this is open source. Literally take this, use this if you think it's interesting or useful. Probably most people don't, but it's available for anybody to use. Michael, should we go through the pipeline or should we do terms first? I'm trying to decide.
They're kind of the same. So let's start with the pipeline since you're there.
Okay, go for it.
So, all the words are just going to be useful to communicate. So like we talked about last time, when you're going to the terminal, it's like going to a foreign country. You want to learn a few key phrases. These are key phrases for Git. You just have to be able to use them so you can understand what people are talking about and what you're talking about. So your project is called the repository. This is where everything is saved. You're going to hear people talk about that mostly as a repo. So people are going to shorten that. They're going to say, hey, what's your repo? Or can you send me the address for your repo? And that's when they're talking about your project on GitHub. Status is something you can do when you're in the command line. You can do a git status. It'll tell you like how much work has been done, how much work has been saved, what work needs to be saved. The staging piece is where you can start to say, okay, these are changes I want to make sure they're saved. I want to get rid of them. I need to review them before I change them. A commit is when you then save it. A push is when you're going to push it back up to the cloud. A branch and a work tree, which is another term you're going to hear, is when you actually can take a little fork in the road, right? You're going to say, hey, I want to work on a little feature. And so we'll look at Graham's time zone tracker. And let's say I wanted to branch that and add a feature to it and make it a time zone tracker with weather, for example. I would make a new branch. I would work on the branch. And then I might say, hey, Graham, what do you think of my weather thing that I added to your time tracker? And I would submit what's called a pull request. It's easier probably just to think of it as a PR. It's called a pull request because what's happening is
so confusing.
It is. You're requesting. I would be saying, hey, Graham, would you pull my branch into your code? And that's why it's called a pull request, even though you're pushing it. And then Graham gets to decide, this is a great feature. I'm going to merge it into the main code base. And the main tree that people talk about is called main. So when people talk about working on main or working on a branch, main is where the home of your code is. And when you're actually coding, you want to try to not work on main. You want to make a work tree so that you can do a little bit of coding over here. If it all works out great, then you can merge it in, because then you don't have to go back and fix your main code line.
These are a couple GitHub, Git, not GitHub, commands that you can use. And init just starts a new repository, a new collection of code. Think of it like a folder is probably the easy way to think of it, but a repository can be multiple folders buried in subfolders. A commit is, hey, I want to save my work. I got to a stopping point, kind of like I want to pause my game, like with my old Nintendo. I'm at a stopping point, I can pause it and save things. Michael said a branch is, hey, I want to try to build a new thing, but I want to break the thing that's currently working correctly. So I'm going to branch my code off. He talked about a pull request, and then you can roll back things that you've screwed up. A couple other terms, I think we said repository is the folder. Public versus private. Like I said, I've got a bunch of GitHub repositories that are private, that nobody else can see but me, but there are other ones that you'll see. Michael's going to share my public repo, my public page on GitHub. A README is just a text file that explains what your thing does, what the repository, what the folder or the code does. The diff is if you want to see what exactly has changed, you can literally look at each file line by line, and it will say, it'll have stuff in green that got added and stuff in red that got deleted. And then I saw a question, I think, or a comment from Nooper, Garg, hi Nooper, about not sharing API keys, which is very important. There are a couple things. There's a thing called a .git ignore file. We're getting real nerdy here. That'll tell Git to not save this one particular file in your folder because it's private or secret, or it's a waste of resources to share it. There's also a thing called the .env file, an environment file that can prevent API keys from getting shared as well. And then, Michael, before you share GitHub, I want to just let the listeners in on one little dirty, dark secret. No, two secrets I have. One, I don't really do Git commands anymore. I just ask Claude to do it for me.
Yeah, same.
So I don't type, you used to type Git commit and then what you wanted to commit and what files and the description. I don't do that anymore. I'm very lazy. I now say, hey, Claude, can you merge, commit, and push this? I just say, can you push this to GitHub? And it'll just handle it. So I've stopped. So in a little bit, some of these commands are like nice things to know. And then the second thing I'll say is I am really bad at sharing code with others. I'm bad at playing in a sandbox with others. So I actually don't really use most of the commands around pull requests and all this stuff. They're very useful. In fact, no, they're actually mandatory if you're doing code with other people. If it's just you doing your own project, I use GitHub all the time for pretty much every single piece of repository, every single code I build, but I'm not doing it with other people. I'm just making my own little stupid nerdy things, but I do use GitHub to back up my code. And if I screw something up, I know I can always revert back as well. Michael, do you want to share my repo?
I'll share some of mine too, so it's fair. Here comes my screen chat.
As Michael's pulling his up, we have people from Australia, Nebraska, Boston, all dialing in, uploading, visiting. Thank you.
You guys can see my screen, okay?
Yeah.
Great. So here's Graham's Git. And so one of the things I want to point out is this is one of the things you'll see is people's status bars. And this shows people's activity, right? So Graham's a busy guy. So here in April, May, he wasn't coding very much. And then here you'll see where he had stretches where he coded more. So this is when you're going to look at someone's homepage. These are their public. You'll see them marked as public or private. And these are their public code bases. So you could go in here. Here's his time zone code that we talked about last time. When you look at the file structure here, there's a branch here. There's only one branch, which is his branch. These are all the files in the repository, the repo. This is the README that is at the top level of his Git. So it kind of tells you, hey, what is this about?
Tells you what it does, shows you screenshots, shows you how to install the code, how to use the code. Because again, if you're making this public, the idea is, this is kind of an open source community concept. Hey, someone else might want this. I want to make it easy for them to use this thing that I built that might help someone else.
Yep. And if you want to do that, you can go right here to the code button. You can copy this. This is the URL, the address to his project. And then in a command line, you just hit clone and it'll copy it down to your computer. So here's his star. I started. So he has 5 stars now on his repository. And then you can search through his other ones. This is what, here, I'll show this for Liam. Liam, this is my pediatric benchmark that we were talking about earlier. And you can see I've got this labeled as private. And so only I can work on this code base. Unless I share it with other people, you can go in and you can work with like peers. You can add them as collaborators.
Yeah, you could make you could have a private, just like you have a private Google Doc. Michael could share that with only me, so only I could see it and I could work on it and help him with it. Or he could say, oh, hey, I actually want to open source this, or I want to make it available for anybody to see.
Right. And you'll see that here. So here's one of my open source projects, and here's what it looks like when you see all the changes that get made. So I can keep going back through time. I can go back to when things got changed or added. You can look at your commit history. There's lots of ways that you can then go through that. So UberGram is Graham's Git repo, and Doc Hobbs is my Git repo.
God. Well, Michael, I've got a perfect segue to our next topic. Rashad Usmani says, I would love AI coding best practices. I feel like I'm constantly making mistakes. Rashad, your check is in the mail. What a segue. My God. That was literally perfect. Guys, our first present to you, the listeners, the watchers, chat. Hey, chat. This is all Michael Hobbs. Michael Hobbs built this. And we will, maybe Jake, I don't know if you can put this in the chat as well as a command just to make it easier for people to install. Michael, do you want to demonstrate, or I can demonstrate this too on my terminal. Do you want to demonstrate how to install this, and then we can go into what it does and then some of the modes as well?
One sec, let me just grab it here real quick, and then I'll share screen again. And we're off again. All right, so in the command line, you'll see this the curl command here. And what you're going to do is when you have just a blank
Hey, Hobbs, can you make your font bigger?
Absolutely, I can.
Zoom in. Yeah, perfect. Thanks.
So we're not in Claude yet, or you could actually do it within Claude. So you would just drop it right there and hit return. You could. So
you're in the terminal and you just hit return. And what this command is going to do is it's going to go to this website of Michael's, AI 101, that we'll plug later as well. And it's going to install this command in Claude.
And here's what that would look like. Let me zoom in a little bit.
Yeah, perfect.
And so you type this command, you'll see that it's fetching this stuff. And these are the kind of things actually you want to be mindful of, because we've talked about sharing, we've talked about running commands in the terminal, but people can put whatever they want in their Git repos, right? And so if you are downloading someone's repository, you don't know them, you don't know their code well, one thing to do is always ask Claude to say, hey, before we pull this, before we clone it, why don't you review the code, see if there's any problems to it. And so this gets the code down. What it is 2 pieces. It's a skill about safe coding. So it helps you when you're getting familiar with the terminal and getting familiar with Claude code to not accidentally do something dangerous or damaging to your other files. And there's what's called a clinician first time experience. And so the first time you come in, you're going to get this little intro. It's going to say, hey, I'm here to help you. It's going to walk through sort of the commands. It's kind of like your guide to Claude code and Git, and it'll help you get set up.
Yeah, so think of it like think of it like a little tour guide, like a college campus guide. Think of it maybe as some training wheels as well. Hobbs, I'm saying we. Michael has built it specifically to help new vibe coders and new vibe coding clinicians to feel a little bit more comfortable and safe, because it's going to give you some training wheels and some additional steps where it's going to really try to, hey, it's kind of prompting Claude and saying, hey, this person who's about to use to work with you is new to this. Can you make sure that you're following security and protocols and doing things the right way and not making shortcuts that could be, result in some problems. So.
And you'll get these little tips along the way. And so it's got a build mode, an explore mode, and a learn mode. And it'll kind of direct you. When you're done with it, there's a way to uninstall it. So that all you have to do is tell Claude to uninstall it when you're all done. And then if you're done with the intro, you can get rid of that and keep the safety layer until you're more comfortable and get rid of that later too.
Yeah. We'll also put the code, the curl code. I think it's in the chat now, but we'll also put it at the end of this as well. Michael, do you want to go through the other, the two other? I'll just flip to these here. You want to go through plan and goal mode and why those are helpful?
Absolutely. So when you're here, let's get back into Claude real quick. Here we are in Claude Code, and I want to build a website. We made one for Graham last time. I thought it's only fair we make one for Jake this time. And so I could either start with a prompt like this, or I could go into plan mode. And so when you start over like this, plan mode is say, hey, let's work this through together a little bit, Claude, before we get there. You also notice there was an ultra plan mode. And you can also shift through these modes by, if you hit Shift Tab, if you look at the bottom left part of my screen, it says plan mode on. I can switch to auto mode, which we'll go over later. This is manual mode, where everything that Claude does, when it gets to a point, like I have to decide I'm going to do A or I'm going to do B, it's going to ask you, is it okay if I do this? Is it okay if I do this? Is it okay if I do that? Early on, great idea to stick with like following along with what it's doing, looking at the permissions. And if you don't understand what it's doing, say, Claude, I don't understand what you're asking me, please explain. And then as you get more comfortable, we'll go through the permissions later, but you might get to a point where you're like, I have a goal. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to type goal, make a website for Jake. From Offcall. And then I'm gonna let it go. So I've given Claude basically, start here, don't come back to me until this is done, because this is your goal. And that's what goal mode is. And you can even get really fancy and say, Claude, write me a goal prompt to give to the goal function. And you'll sometimes get a much more detailed set of instructions that you might type on your own manually. So if you want to brainstorm with Claude, you can say, hey, let's go into plan mode. Let's think through what I want to do. Here's what I want to build. Here are the features I want it to have. And then you can say, hey, Claude, can you write me a goal prompt for that now? And then go into goal mode and say, goal, here's your goal, follow it, and you can walk away, get a cup of coffee.
Amazing. I'm just going to jump to permissions and safety a bit here. I'll also open and share my terminal as well. You guys can imagine when people were first starting to vibe code, having to approve every single command was a little painful. Like a command that just shows the list of files in a directory. Well, that's not all that dangerous. Maybe we should automatically make that acceptable. And so over time, these vibe coding tools have gotten a lot better about making it acceptable for some commands to be run automatically. Like, oh, I just want to look at what files are. I want to, and so they have a list of commands baked into their software. They're like, hey, we think those are fine. They have other commands that you can give approval to. And then they have a list of commands that they typically will say, hey, we always want the user's attention, the user's permission to do this. So there is a mode, I'll show in a second, for auto approval. And think of this like, hey, I'm going to let the chief resident who's a month from graduation run the team. They're going to run the list. They're going to make most of the decisions. I'm just going to listen in and double check them. But I trust this person. I've worked with them for a long time. I think they're really reliable. And then there's another version that is called dangerously skip permissions. That is literally the name of the command. And I'll show this in a second. Think of that as let the intern run the team. Maybe the med student knows what to do. No offense to interns and med students, but there's a reason you're in training. And there's a reason that you usually don't let the intern run the entire team and make all the decisions, because this removes all of the guardrails. Let me share my screen here and I will show you exactly what I'm talking about and how that works. So, you guys see that okay? I'm gonna make mine bigger here.
Yep.
So, I can type this into Claude. There's a similar command for OpenAI codex called YOLO, you only live once mode. These are a little facetious, a little silly, but look what happens when I hit this. Big red text. Hey, Claude is not going to ask you for approval for like anything. You should not do this unless you are ready to have all your files deleted and you know what you're doing and you accept all responsibility for all of the actions. And hey, if you delete your entire hard drive, if Claude deletes all your emails and not just puts them in the trash, but empties the trash, you're screwed. So you can do that. But again, it tries to warn you very seriously, like, hey, I'm not sure if you should do that. So just if you see that mode, be careful. Consider not using that mode whatsoever. I want to. Michael, go ahead while we're bringing up Tom. Yeah.
And there's in-betweens, right? There's auto mode, which you can improve some things. And then there's actually a whole / permissions where you can set individual permissions as I okay this one, I okay this one, I okay this one, I okay this one. And so you can get really granular about it if you want to.
Yeah. Let's bring up Tom Kelly. I'm super excited. Tom, oh my gosh, good morning.
Hi guys. Yes, morning in Melbourne.
Tom, thanks for being here. Oh, it's beautiful. Tom, you're the CEO of Heidi. You're a physician. We're really excited to have you here today. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I was listening in. It's very cool.
Tom, are you? Do you have slides to share? Should we just talk? I certainly want to ask you about vibe coding and Heidi and everything as well.
Yeah, I'm happy. I don't have any slides. I'm happy to just chat through what you guys are talking about.
Totally.
I was going to share my GitHub. It's like mostly green.
Please. Please. I mean, Tom. When I was texting you about this webinar, I was like, I think he vibe codes, and then, I was blown away that you vibe code for Heidi too. Like, I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, I'd say pretty much since the end of last year when Opus 4.5 came out, that was when we started taking it very seriously at Heidi, because before that, it was really good for little mock-up apps or lovable kind of stuff. But if you wanted to deal with a big production database, which has sometimes thousands of files, lots of engineers working on it, it wasn't really possible. But yeah, at the end of last year, it became possible. So our evidence product, I would say, I think I did 120 PRs that got into production over January, February. From big to small, small stuff being styling and names of things to more big functional stuff. We have a CPD component that I basically built myself that tracks your time on different sources. Lots of engineers in the middle to make sure it's good and high quality, but yeah, it's been amazing. It's transformed the team.
Tom, tell me, as both CEO, as a CEO, and then help CEO leader, and then also as a physician, why have you found it useful, helpful, enjoyable to do vibe coding, not just for you and your company, but actually for the real product, not just a demo?
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure. I assume people who love this topic and are in the chat, they're sort of creators, they're builders, they like making things. Maybe it was Legos when you were growing up, or building something in the backyard. And I do think in medicine it's maybe like a little dissatisfying for builders. Like I did surgical training. Maybe that's why like I liked, like seeing a wound come together or something like that. And so for the first time, the constraint has been that you had to write this really tricky language that took a lot of time and energy to understand, which was like code. And a lot of doctors didn't have time to learn enough. It was like you only learned enough to speak like very badly. So then you couldn't really turn your ideas in your mind into something that worked in software. But now with these tools, it's like completely possible. So at Heidi, it means that let's say we have an idea, like an example is I want to add maybe like an inbox to Heidi. So I want a way for someone to be able to send an email to Heidi receive it and do something with it. Now I have the idea in my mind. I'm like, that would be useful. Clinics get so much content and stuff to them. Maybe they could just have Heidi pass it for the first step. And I can just like build it. I can add the little toggle on Heidi. I use Cursor because it has a really nice built-in browser. So you can basically, as you build it, once it shows you what it's done. So it's like, here's the inbox, and then you're like, oh god, this looks horrible. And you can actually click on the area and say, I really was imagining like a tabulated view here. And then it's like, oh, actually, I really need to be able to preview the email. Like I can't actually like see the content. And then you hover over it. And so, yeah, I think for anyone who's like a builder and then has this like, vivid imagination, it's like turning this idea in your mind into something real. And when you use it, you can actually quickly iterate because you are the user or the customer. So it becomes like a huge advantage for the people who understand the actual problems that are being solved. So it means that like as a doctor, you know the problem you have. And so now that you don't need to know this tricky language in the middle, you can just, once you figure out the Git part and like the code setup and like how to run something in a browser and like some of the ideas, it basically makes it very easy for everyone to build their ideas. So I'm excited about it. It's super cool. Yeah.
We've got a couple questions from the audience, Tom. One from Mike Logan that I had a similar one, so I'll ask after Mike's here. For Dr. Tom Colley, what's the next step when you've got a great idea and a working MVP, but you don't know anyone who can take you further? Tom, you're not a lowly doctor, but we are mostly physicians more than engineers. Like, how do you make that? I think it is. I agree. I mean, look, I agree, Mike. I do think it's a leap. Like it goes from me doing this one little thing to trying to contribute to something more serious or contribute with other people, other humans. How do you make that leap and that growth?
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it is similar to MD Calc back in the day. I think anything that's really going to become either a good business or a great hobby project has to spread by word of mouth. So actually, it's sort of like finding the early community that's going to like your tool, give you feedback, and then share it with their friends. And then you just got to hope that those friends of friends share it with their friends, and so on and so forth. So actually, in my experience, I looked up, there was this Tech for Docs group that was on Facebook. It was an Australian group because obviously I'm Australian. I remember posting in there saying, hey, like I think every doctor is going to use AI. This was back in like 2021. I think everyone is going to use AI. I'm not exactly sure what to build. Like, would anyone be open to seeing like my prototype? And I remember back then, like few doctors like Gihan and a couple others I remember were like, yep, put up their hands like, yeah, no worries. Come visit me in my practice. Like I have a free afternoon. And I was like, yep, no worries. I'll be there. And then so I had this small group of like 10 to 20 people that were sort of like optimistic about what I was building, but to be honest, they were skeptical of my ideas. And then it took me ages, like by the time I'd say probably 2 years before like Heidi as a scribe, but particularly like the ideas of the main idea we had was that people might want to write notes that can't be said out loud. Like, I don't know, the patient says, I'm in terrible chest pain, but actually they just walked in and they're fine and you're like not worried about them at all. And so we had this area where you could type notes and then when you click stop, it would blend the note and the transcript. That was like the idea. And then, yeah, that 10 or 20 were like, wow, this is really good. Like, is there a way to share? Like, how do I sign up? Like, can I refer people? Like, what do I have to pay for it? And then you're like, oh, okay. I don't know, insert price, like $500 a year. And then they said, great, no worries. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's a good sign. And then mostly spread by word of mouth. of course, like if you really want to quit your day job and try to make this into a business, then you have to think about raising money and all the rest of it. Pay the servers, pay for engineers. But yeah, that was in the beginning. That was basically what I did.
Did you feel like you got good reception as the physician who was building stuff at that point?
Yeah, I think so. I think like you get this credibility, you know, like you've been in the room, you've seen the patient, you've been snowed under by documents or had emergency pages or referrals. Because I was a vascular surgery resident, so I was used to being super busy. And so people always gave me the time of day, even if my ideas were a bit crap. Yeah, I think it helps a lot. The challenge is maybe more the actual like business thinking, or like what the right product is, or like how, like whether your idea could be good, but like is it good enough to quit your job? There's like, and like the gap between like that and what I now know is a big difference. But yeah, I'd say in the initial phases, don't have to overcomplicate it. Just make something good. People should like it. They should keep using it. They should want to share it with others. People share stuff they like. Don't have to make it more complicated than that. And if you really love it and you find yourself, like I found myself just spending all my time like dwelling and thinking about like, oh man, I want to add this, or I want to do that. I just want to spend all my time on this. Like, I don't want to have to go to the next toe amputation. Like, can I just spend all my time at Heidi? And that was what prompted me to go out and fundraise, take a career break, see if I could turn it into a business that could pay the bills. And yeah, it's been going really well.
I mean, I think that's the marketing line right there. Like, I could have been doing the next toe amputation, and I was thinking about Heidi. That's how important it was and how good it was.
Exactly.
Tom, I'm curious. Did you go to your team and say, "Hey, can I contribute? Can I vibe code?" Or did your team say, "Hey, we'd love to not get in the middle of the CEO has a vision and idea for what the evidence product should look like. Why don't we just let him do it?" Like, I do think it's sometimes hard for human beings to communicate clearly what their vision is in their head of how this thing should work is. And in some ways, like, it actually is easier to just, hey, just let the leader say what they want. If they want to keep tweaking every little thing, they're the leader, they get to, but then the engineer doesn't have to spin their wheels of like, send you a demo, send you a screenshot, and then you're like, no, I don't like that, I want this. Like, where did that come from?
Yeah, I think initially I remember I spent quite a bit of time just trying to get set up. So that was, so when you have a big code base, you have to like download a GitHub. So if you look at any open source project, like if you Google something, let's say someone's built, like there's an open source version of everything usually, you know, web browser. Yes. And then once I kind of grasped that, okay, GitHub is basically just like an online folder repository that deals with changes, kind of like I just download the content, and then like Git is the way of managing changes. Then I was like, okay, so I have to download like Heidi's code base. How does that work? And then luckily the engineering team had already started using Claude Code and like had thought through how that would work. So basically, yeah, I'd say it probably took me a couple weeks to figure out like, okay, I can just run the code base like at all. I can run the current product in my local machine, like on my computer, and it works. Once I could do that, then I was like, my ambition was slowly rose. So I started with like, can I like, you know, change the name of this thing, or can I change this icon, or like, and then I remember at some point I was like, okay, I'm like going to try to develop a whole feature from scratch and see like how hard this is. And it was a little tricky. Like, you have to think through like back-end engineering. I strongly recommend doing lots of planning when you're building out the documents, and literally just say like, I'm not technical, I don't understand this. I have a little bit of a cheat. Like, I did computer science in my undergrad, so I like conceptually know how it works, but I'm not a developer. So I think it helped me get a bit further along. But I think what I realized is that, yeah, basically it's incredibly good at front end is fine. Like if you just change the way things look and feel and move, and that's usually pretty safe. When you're developing like how content's going to be stored or processed or searched over, or that's like a little more tricky with back-end engineering, because you literally have no idea how it's going. You just see it work, but then it may be costing like so much, or storing too much, or so in practice, what ended up happening was we realized that, okay, we actually probably don't need that many intermediate things. Like, I don't need to write a document to a designer who designs it, who then gives it to an engineer, and like the degree of hoping that what I imagined exists gets reduced on every step and passed to another person. What we should do is like devolve everything to just like everyone ships PRs to each other, pull request, or like a change to the code. So it's like I film a Loom or a screen recording of me doing something on what I've built. Then I share the code. The designer's like, that's horrible, and then makes it more beautiful. It's like iteration of my code. And then the engineer looks at the code and thinks through like all the engineering things that he actually, you know, went to school and studied and learned for the last 10 years. So, and depends on the ambition. Like the CPD feature had to be like entirely rebuilt on the back end. But the way it works and feels is like mostly back to my original design, but with much better design thinking. Yeah. And there's much better engineering. So the team is the same. It's just that we all talk through code. Yeah.
Was that your first feature, CPD? What was your first exciting feature that you tried to build?
Yeah, CPD, and then also the evidence grading. So in Heidi, like when you type in a question and you get back the clinical sources, we have like little labels of like whether you should rely on it or whether it's like maybe a questionable source. And I remember. And that's sorry. That one is such a good example of why being a clinician is an advantage, because obviously I know like the Cochrane review scoring systems and like how like I've went to school and I learned about it and I did lit reviews and I understand that. So then I can, like, me trying to explain to like an engineering team like the concepts of that is so hard. It would take me to write like whole pages of like so I could just build it. I was like, okay, I'm going to adopt like these frameworks, these journals, these pages, these impact scores, like here's how we're going to interpolate them all. And then on the design, that was where I made some best guesses. I was like, okay, green, blue, red, orange, like let's like rank them. And then we're going to add a reference list and we're going to append those little labels to it and like some weight them and make sure the answers represent the content. Anyway, so I think, yeah, probably evidence scoring and then CPD. CPD was the most ambitious one because every time you send a message, if you click on a link and spend time on that page, I had to track the time that you were spending on that page and then save that back in your profile. And that was the first time I'd done both front end and back end in like one release to the team. And actually it worked pretty well. Just everyone agreed that it was ugly. So it was mainly like a design, like how do we make this a bit more intuitive, like hide it a bit more. But yeah, it's been amazing. So once I realized that, then I actually in February I stopped doing too much myself, and I was like, okay, I need to try to figure out like how all the teams can do what I can do. So like, all the PMs should, like all the product people should do this. All the clinicians should be able to do this. All of the designers should write code. And actually now I'm going back to doing it with some of the work we're doing, both in evidence and some of the agents we're building at Heidi.
Hey, you made several really inspiring points, and I know we're going to take a couple questions, but I just want to make sure all the clinicians out there, you know, you started as a clinician, you were really curious, you started vibe coding, you didn't exactly know what you were doing, but you were really curious, and you took the knowledge and the skills you had and started translating that into useful things for other people. That's really cool.
Yeah, 100%. I saw a good question. How do your engineers stop making fun of your code? So actually, I would say that the crazy thing is the models now actually write code just as well as the engineers, you know? I think they make fun of you when you don't plan and like the back end like deletes like half the code base or like rewrites like entire sections. I remember one funny one at Heidi was someone wanted to change the color of a button and change like 8 files, and it's like what the hell? So usually it's more unintentional like weird changes and you're not paying attention. Yeah,
I feel like it's pretty common that I'm like, oh, this is I just want to change it to purple from blue. This has got to be one. There's got to be one little line, and it's like, why did 7 files get freaking changed?
Or 100 lines of code.
Yes. It's all those dependencies and those like React file types and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I know we've got to move to Stanford. I think the Heidi team's going to continue answering questions in the chat. Tom, I just want to say thank you, Tom. We could literally do a whole episode on just like the CEO vibe coding, like how you've reorganized Heidi around enabling all your people to do what you did, and now you've gone full circle that you're like back to vibe coding and doing advanced stuff too. Is awesome.
100%.
Thank you so much.
Strong work.
Nice to meet you. Bye.
Thanks, Tom. That was, I kind of love that. I love the idea of like the CEO learns and then he has the insight of, oh damn, this is really good for me. Well, then I need to now replicate that and give all my teams have that same expectation, unlock that same thing for all of my teams to shorten the time to execution as well. It's awesome.
Yeah, and the data backs that up too. From what I've seen in the literature, like you've got to lead from the top with the AI implementation.
Yep. I'm going to introduce our next guest, Liam. If we want to get Liam up on stage from Stanford Arise, like Hobbs and I said, this research collaborative is doing, I think, the best medical AI benchmarking and research. Also, shout out Google. I think Google does really some of the best research out there as well. Liam, I'll run through your slides for you. Liam, do you want to just introduce yourself to everybody on the webinar? And thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. I'm Liam. I'm a fifth-year resident in neurology in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada at the University of Alberta. And I'm incoming faculty next summer at Harvard at Beth Israel. A lot of my work is on essentially this question of how do we get AI from this abstract, amazing technology through all the bumps and bruises of actually getting it into the real clinical environments. And I've been working with the Harvard Stanford Arise group for a couple of years now.
Amazing. Let me just fly over to our slides here. Liam, go for it. You just tell me next slide and I'll navigate for you.
Perfect. Yeah. So I'm here to chat about the medical AI superintelligence test, which is your Offcall audience is kind of getting the early look at this. This is something that we're actually officially launching coming up on Monday. But essentially, we looked at all of the benchmarks out there in the world. And for those who aren't aware, benchmarks are basically the tests that we give to any sort of AI model. You were trying to understand how well does it perform? What is it good at? What is it bad at? Where does it perform well? Where does it perform poorly? And we realized that all these benchmarks are getting written and they just get stranded. You'll see this amazing benchmark that was last updated in 2024. And what we knew about AI in 2024 tells us almost nothing about these new models. We're realizing that you need sort of a new centralized form of infrastructure in order to actually make sure that these things get evaluated in an ongoing way, that we can find out the newest models. GPT-6 releases tomorrow. Who's going to have that up there in 4 hours for you to know how it does in healthcare? This is happening all everywhere else, but I think in healthcare it's becoming particularly important. And we were also wondering, how do we move beyond just a bunch of random numbers that each tell you something, but don't really give you a holistic sense of the whole, to sort of seeing benchmarks as like different ways of assessing underlying performance of a model. So the way we think about it is models can have knowledge characteristics, but they also might have reasoning characteristics. Some models might be really good at images. Some models might have no ability to look at radiological images. So we built this benchmark suite. Here we see we have 10 different benchmark sets we've included with it. You might have heard of a few of them. There's the CPC cases. These are based on the New England Journal's 120-year clinical pathologic case series archive. We have a large chest x-ray benchmark. We have some dermatologic and other image benchmarks. We have some agentic benchmarks. So essentially for the Claude Code type tools, how well do they work inside an agentic clinical environment? And then we have the no harm paper, as well as one called script concordance testing. And we go on to the next slide. What we found was that a lot of different models do well, but no one model is completely dominant across the board. So one of the challenges of evaluation in this space is not every model is meant to do everything. As you can see on this list here, we decided to have a general set, which is for sort of non-clinical specific products, and then a clinical set, which is for those more clinical specific products. So here, three of our partners were Glass Health, Amboss, and Doximity, all of who agreed to let us test some of their products and sort of report how things are going. And then obviously we test a lot of models from the main frontier labs on a broader set of tasks, because the ones that just exist in a chatbot box aren't necessarily good at looking at imaging, doing agentic reasoning, etc. And essentially what we find is there's a wide range of performance. If we hop over to the next slide, you see that the models that dominate in one area don't necessarily dominate in all the other areas. So I like this radar plot sort of structure because it shows that, in particular, those models that are really dominant at radiology and images, in particular, Google is incredible at this. Like Google's models seem to knock everybody else out of the water on imaging, which I think makes sense because they have a ton of imaging data. But as those of us who've recently used Gemini know, it kind of leaves something to be desired in the reasoning realm. Claude is also not as good at imaging, but it's excellent at agentic execution. Like when we run this benchmark, you start to see these kind of profiles. So when people ask us this question of like, what model should I use or what model is best in healthcare? The question is really, okay, well, what do you want to use it for? What sort of set of tasks, what suite of tasks are you using it for? And so we found sort of a big range here. But if we go to the next slide, one thing that we found really interesting, it's funny because the results of this have been coming out through No Harm, through other sort of models, and all the AI companies have been fighting each other to say, oh, look, well, we have the best clinical AI product. We have the best clinical AI product. But none of them have pointed in on the fact that our work is actually validating that entire class of clinical AI products. So I think that has been one of the bigger questions over the last couple of years is like, okay, but why use open evidence or why use Bridges products or why use Amboss or what have you? Why use Heidi's product agents that they're making their evidence agents, et cetera, if GPT can just do all of it? But what we're seeing is there are now incremental returns to the hard work that these various companies have done in building these amazing backends that look at the clinical literature, that have some clinical specific reasoning. And we see kind of across the board that the mean is higher for these clinical products and the peak is higher for the clinical products. So we're currently Glass Health's product essentially swept things across the board in the clinical realm. And it did much better than the generalist products it was being compared to. And then for our final slide here, there's always the question of like, how does this compare to clinicians, right? So we see that actually the models do a lot better than humans at our harmfulness benchmark. So, the preprint is out there now. It's currently in peer review, so we haven't done a ton of promo on it. But we do see that the models are very, very good at avoiding sort of harmful risks and options. But the humans are still outperforming on the radiology, on the dermatology, as well as the script concordance testing, which is essentially like looking at how we update our answers under uncertainty. And we found some really interesting results, which is that the sort of quote unquote thinking models kind of think themselves into an extreme answer that kind of drives things off. So this is just a little bit of a lot of the stuff we're doing at Arise. We're keeping an eye out for all of our promo on Monday. We'll have our blog and our paper and everything sort of sharing this in detail. And we're also really welcoming sort of people who want to reach out for collaboration. If you do have benchmarks, Michael, I'm going to have to follow up with you after this because I think more and more and more benchmarks in a centralized space where there's one group that is actually doing the stuff, running the tokens. We've used billions of tokens, more than 600,000 model responses in this evaluation. I really hope that we can continue having this be a resource for the whole community. And then I think I'm supposed to also shout out that the Arise group in Stanford has a conference called HAILS. Forgetting what this stands for, but I'm to be told that if you mention Offcall when you're signing up, you get a discount. It's essentially, if you're here, that means you're a clinician who's interested in learning about how to use AI. And I think it would fit as well in that environment.
You plugged it perfectly, Liam. I've got a link to Stanford's HAILS conference at the end of the talk. So that was perfect. Liam, thank you. I could not agree more. The work that you guys are doing is incredible. And you guys also, I think, appreciate that this has to be dynamic. The benchmarks have to get harder because the models are all getting better. Thank you again for giving us a sneak peek. It's really awesome.
Yeah, I think we could do a whole episode just on benchmarks.
I mean, seriously, yeah. Just like, what are all these benchmarks and why did some get replaced? And, oh, hey, why do we have to build something more challenging or more difficult? And what are the limitations of these different benchmarks? Amazing. I'm going to pivot over to our live physician tool showcase. We've got, thank you. I think we've got 5 or 6 brief videos from our Offcall community who are all building tools, again, by physicians, for physicians. So let's take it away.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Nikhil Shah. I'm a nephrologist at the University of Alberta. And like every physician, I've got no time to read all the journals. So I vibe coded Audio Scholar. Once you log in, you choose your specialty, and every week it becomes a 10-minute podcast. Let's listen in.
Welcome to This Week in Cardiology. This week we're covering 10 notable papers spanning major updates in lipid and preventative guidelines, new insights into heart failure management and phenotyping, and advances in vascular and coronary interventions.
You have direct links available here to take you to the original papers. My commute is literally now my journal club. Try it. audioscholar.cc.
Hey, Offcall community. My name is Mike Logan. I'm an emergency medicine physician. We all have ideas to fix healthcare. Then 3 ambulances pull up and the idea dies. I built Physician Builders to fix that. It's a healthcare sandbox you build with hardware, synthetic patients, CMS payment models. Most of us don't know an engineer. Here you pick one, they build it and price it and send out your MVP. Ship it to the community gallery. Physicians worldwide upvote and suggest iterations. Then collab, build live, different specialties, different expertise, people who would have never met in the same room, all brought together. 10,000 clinicians all building together. This is how we take our autonomy back. You're always a builder.
Hey guys, I'm Rashad. I'm a family physician building primary AI. We're a clinical decision support tool with citation verification, a localization feature which gives you localized guidelines and antibiotic resistance patterns, and we're also getting CME tracking coming soon. I initially built it on Lovable, then I moved to Cloud Code and Cursor, and I also just trained my own model for the citation verification feature.
Hi, I'm Josh Barron. I'm an emergency medicine physician, and I vibe coded Claire. Claire is a physician-facing AI and triage assistant. She helps manage the informal and on-call medical requests physicians receive. She gathers the right clinical information, identifies urgency, and then delivers a concise, decision-ready summary for the doctor. The goal? Make these requests safer, faster, and much easier to manage.
Hi, I'm Aaron Ranke. Have you ever left a patient room after a difficult conversation and thought, that could have gone better? Whether it's delivering bad news or counseling somebody on weight loss, I've designed a platform that can use your AI scribe and analyze your patient encounter against over 30 evidence-based communication frameworks, and then give you the insights into your strengths and weaknesses on your communication. In addition, we have training exercises to target those weaknesses and AI roleplay to help you practice and master the skills, all while getting CME. Check us out at whetstone.health.
I mean, that was incredible. Thank you, everybody, for submitting. I'm sure there's 50 other incredible clinician submissions for next time as well. I will just take issue with Aaron's final Whetstone Health presentation. No patient has ever had any problem with my communication skills. They're perfect. So I don't know what you're talking about, Aaron. There's no way we can improve. I don't need growth mindset. I'm just perfect already. What are you talking about? Why are you laughing, Michael? That's serious.
I'm same boat. No, never had a problem. No friction.
Michael's a pediatrician, so you can get away with that. Let's just jump to our final slides, and then I'm going to jump back so we can take more questions. But I want to just make sure we kind of hit these points. Hopefully, you guys are getting excited about vibe coding, using Git and GitHub as like a really good safety net, training wheels. Please use the skill. I've got it. I'm pointing down as if I'm not going to go to the next slide. It's in the next slide. I would be a terrible Twitch streamer. I use plan mode a lot, especially when I'm starting a project, to make sure I'm not, make sure that the model actually helps me understand what I'm trying to explain to it. Auto approval is great. I have never used dangerously skip permissions or YOLO mode, like literally never. I just don't trust these models. I think the consequences are just a little too severe for my tastes. In case it were to do something I just don't want it to do. And then, I mean, like we heard from Tom and Liam and all the clinicians that showed their vibe coded projects and their vibe coded companies now, clinicians who can prototype, who can build and vibe code are going to have more influence in healthcare with their patients, and are going to be leading this next wave as well. We're not trying to turn you, just like Tom said, we're literally not trying to turn you into an engineer. Tom literally has a computer science background, and he was like, I'm not a programmer. You can get really far. You can truly build stuff to help you manage your day, take better care of patients with these tools. And a big thank you to Michael Hobbs for his co-hostedness. If you have not checked out his website, Michael has the best domain names. This domain name is really AI101.health. Type that into the URL. And he goes through, he has vibe coded and created all of these tools and tutorials to help physicians get better at using AI and vibe coding. Please tell us what you want to see next. We would love to continue this series with more advanced topics as well. My computer is telling me it's time to take my lisinopril. I want to thank Heidi as well. Tom, was great to have Tom Kelly, the CEO from Heidi. If you do a demo and complete a demo with Heidi, they will give you a month of Heidi free or an Amazon gift card, and they will email you with details. Liam, thank you from Stanford Arise. If you mention Offcall and register for the conference, they'll give you a discount as well. The URL is there. Install the skill. Here is the skill. I want to say thank you to Evidently for sponsoring this entire webinar series. Innovator MD, Uli is an incredible colleague in the innovation space, who's been doing it for decades now, long before AI even existed. That is the URL to install the skill. We are over time, but I can stay and try to answer a few more questions. I don't know about you, Hobbs.
I'm happy to stay. This is amazing.
It's just so exciting. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Let me just scroll up and see if I can find some good questions here.
I am too now. Oh, there we go.
Christopher Corbett asked, can you give a brief description of Claude Cowork versus Code? I know you can use Cowork to help vibe code, so which is best to start with? Pros and cons of each. You want to try that one, Hobbs?
Yeah. So Cowork is in the app on the desktop. It's not in the command line. What we've been working in is mostly the command line, which gives you more access to the whole file system in the computer. Think of Cowork as more of a contained Claude code. It can do a lot of the same stuff. It can even access Git repositories, but it doesn't have the same access to all of the tools that you'll have in the command line. And so it's a great place to start. It's a great place to dip your toes in, try it out, see how it works. And then when you bump into an area where it's not working for you, then you can move on to the next step.
Dave Brown. I actually don't know the answer to this one, so I'm going to punt this one to you again too. Dave Brown, will the skill work in Codex as well as in Claude?
So what I'll do is I'll create a Codex version of it. You could probably give it to Codex and say, hey, turn this into a Codex skill really easily, so don't have to wait on me. But I was a little short on time, so I focused on the Claude version for today.
Yeah, when you run that command, it actually downloads some files and moves them secretly into the special Claude skills folder on your computer, on your hard drive. And so, yeah, I agree. I think, Dave, if you wanted to just give that command to Codex, it could probably figure it out, but we can also, it moves the files to the Claude directory, not the Codex directory. That's the main difference.
Yeah, and good practice for auditing code that you download to say, hey, is this code good? Is it legit? Does it cause any problems?
Totally. Can you pop the Arise link back in the comments, or put it in the comments? Yeah, I'll go back to that slide there. John, hey John. Oh, great. Yeah, I know we're over time. It is 9 p.m. here. I just want to say thank you again. This has been an incredible 4-part series. Michael Hobbs, thank you so much for being my co-host and my demonstrator and my screen sharing partner in all of this. It's been really awesome to work with you.
Oh, so happy to do it. It was great.
Everybody have a great night. Have a great rest of your week and your summer. And yeah, send us a DM. Let us know what other topics you'd like us to cover as well. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Graham.